I think the reality is spouses and partners have probably always had some element of spying on each other, going back in time from day dot really. I think it's become more prominent in the technological era just because of the equipment and the technology now makes it much easier for spouses or partners to spy on each other. In court proceedings specifically, we're seeing definitely an increase in clients wanting to introduce recordings or material obtained covertly from their spouse or former partner. For example, and the classic one is covertly recording their partner or ex-partner on a mobile phone, whether that's the images of a video or the audio. The type of equipment being used in a family law context is changing all the time as technology develops. So traditionally it would be audio recording or cameras, CCTV or mobile phones, but now it's becoming much more sophisticated and creative. Classics are things like dash cams in cars or car trackers, or placing a camera somewhere secretly in the house or the home to spy on their partner to try and find out what they're up to. But in more recent times, as the technology gets even more advanced, some of the spyware equipment is becoming very, very sophisticated, even to the extent even a USB charging point, which may look completely standard and innocuous like any other phone charger that you might see, is actually designed to either download material or record and such things. Covert recordings can sometimes be used in court, but the default position is that the court needs to grant permission for that recording to be introduced. A lot of people think that if they've got the recording, they can automatically use it to support their case or to try and damage the other person's case, but that's not the reality. You need the court's permission before you can introduce covert recordings into the court forum. And in my experience, the default position is the court doesn't really like recordings of someone who doesn't know they're being filmed or taped or listened to being used in that context, certainly in the family law courts. It can be helpful to a client's case to sometimes use covert recordings of their spouse or former partner. For example, in children cases, if there are serious safeguarding concerns about the other parent and that the person wants to ensure that those concerns are actually captured so they can be visualized in the court by the judge, then they can be useful. But unfortunately, what we do see quite a lot is the covert recordings being taken by somebody thinking it will support their case, but it doesn't really. And the fact that the other person doesn't know they're being filmed or recorded means that the court treats such footage with quite a lot of caution. People can be emotional and say things in the heat of the moment that they wouldn't necessarily say, and certainly wouldn't say if they thought they were being filmed. We've definitely seen an increase in the use of covert recordings. We're seeing it much more nowadays than when I first started out in practice. Probably what I would say is, historically, covert recordings were used to try and prove that a spouse or partner was being unfaithful or cheating or up to no good. That's less so now, certainly since the change in the laws surrounding divorce, and we now have a no-fault divorce system. But what I am definitely seeing is an increase in covert recordings and surveillance and the use of spyware in children cases. And this typically can be where one parent is trying to demonstrate that the other parent has got shortcomings and has got character failings which they think should be brought to the court's attention. So probably quite sadly, we're seeing quite a lot more of these covert recordings and use of spyware in cases surrounding children and not necessarily a divorce situation. We tend to give several warnings to clients about using such techniques such as covert recordings or use of spyware. First and foremost, we'll remind the client that there's no guarantee that the court will allow it to be used and introduced into the case. But also, it can be quite damaging for an individual to take footage or a recording of another person that person's not aware of. Certainly if they then publish it, for example, on social media, because that in itself can cause problems for the person who's taken the recordings. You know, if you're going to film somebody or record somebody without their knowledge or consent, and that publication is then shared, for example, on social media, the person who's been filmed or recorded could potentially take action against you for breach of their privacy, and you can end up in quite hot water. So we always give clear advice and warnings to clients that A, the recordings can really only be used in rare and exceptional circumstances, and B, to be very careful about publicising or publishing any covert recordings taken of their spouse or partner.